Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Show. This is your co-host, Olisa and
And your co host, Henrietta Wright. And we are bringing you another thought provoking episode. It's Still Life. Now, a still life of apples seems simple at first, but artists have always used apples to tell deeper stories, from temptation to knowledge and abundance. And in my own work, painting apples isn't just about fruit, it's about memory, community, and the everyday made extraordinary.
And in education, apples carry their own symbolism. The apples for the teacher, the fruit of knowledge, the everyday practice showing up to learn. When we talk about still life, we're also talking about education, stillness, the space of reflection that AI cannot replicate. So now let's think about stillness versus speed. AI is fast. It generates in seconds, but still life reminds us that reflection takes time. An apple on canvas is not rush, it's study. That's what education needs right now, spaces of stillness to balance the speed of the machine.
Exactly. Still life teaches us to see what's overlooked: the shine of the light on the skin, the shadow underneath, and the imperfections that make it real. AI can mimic the image, but it doesn't know the patience behind the brushstroke or the many times just trying to get it right.
Right.
So let's look at what the lessons of apples are. Apples rot if ignored, but they flourish and nourish when cared for. Education works the same way. If we reduce it to instant outputs, bites, so to speak, it decays. But if we cultivate it with care, it can feed generations.
Now that's the paradox. In AI driven classrooms, the temptation is to automate the apple, to mass produce lesson plans. But here's the catch: the true lesson of apple is in the slow works, the peeling, the tasting, the savoring. That's where wisdom lives. So, what does still life really mean in our AI moments? To me, it's about grounding. Amidst all the noise of new tools and trends, still life asks, what remains when everything else changes?
And for me, still life is not about being static. It's about honoring the everyday, the ordinary made sacred. In education and art, the challenge is to keep the stillness alive, the reflective layers that AI cannot automate away.
You know, what fascinates me about still life is how it doesn't hide the flaws. A bruise on the skin or the way light falls unevenly, those imperfections are part of the truth.
And that's what makes it human. AI tends to smooth over the edges, but art and teaching live in the imperfections. That's where we find the story, empathy, and connection.
Now, when we think about connection, let's talk about apples and the community.
Apples aren't solitary fruits. They show up in baskets, at markets, in kitchens, and on tables. A still life often tells a communal story. Who gathered them? Who will share them?
That's how I see classrooms too. A still life of apples is really a still life of community. Learning is never about one person's knowledge, but about the bow, the collective experience we share. So now we think about lessons in decay. The lesson is apples don't last forever. They rot if ignored. Education is no different. If we let it sit untouched, if we reduce it to automation, it decays.
And that's why artists paint them, to suspend the moment, to preserve something fleeting. For educators, the work is similar. We seek to preserve curiosity, identity, and the knowledge before they are lost. So, choosing the medium, okay? When I draw or paint apples, I choose carefully. Graphite or acrylic for richness, watercolor crayon for softness, and digital tools for experimentation. The medium actually changes the story entirely.
Wow, I agree. And that's the same in teaching. A lecture, a debate, a hands on project, or even an AI module. Each is its own medium. And the choice of medium decides whether its students get a polished product or a meaningful encounter. So we think about still life in the digital age. In 2025, still life feels like a challenge. Amongst the number of apps and access to everything nowadays, the apple still sits on the table. They remind us slow down, notice, reflect.
And we think about in education, we're also reflective practitioners. And that's what makes still life timeless. AI can generate the image of an apple, but it doesn't feel the weight of stillness. It doesn't know the pause between brushstrokes or the silence between a teacher and a student. Those are human rhythms, and they matter more than speed. So, in our closing reflections, for me, still life is about honoring the everyday. It says the ordinary is worth attention, worth memory, worth art.
And for me, it's about balance. Technology gives us velocity, but still life reminds us of depth. At the end of the day, Apple rots, class ended, and tools evolved. But the practice of noticing, of slowing down, is what makes wisdom possible.
And that's why we call this episode It's Still Life. Because no matter how fast the world spins, life continues. And it's still life.
And that's what makes our work art official. Until next time, keep creating, keep reflecting, and don't forget to savor the apples on your table.
And that is official.